Welcome to Behind the Binary. In this episode, we're wrapping up the Flare on 12 competition. We're joined by 4 of the challenge authors, Nick Harbour, Blas Kojusner, Moritz Raabe, and Sam Kim. They're here to give us a behind-the-scenes look, talking about challenge motivations, how the competition ran, giving some insight into catching cheaters, and some overall stats. And let's not forget about the coveted Finisher's Prize. Get ready for a deep dive into Flare on 12. All right, welcome everyone. So here we are. Another season of Flare On has ended. Flare On 12 has just wrapped up, and I've got a number of folks here: Nick, Blas, Moritz, and Sam, all challenge authors and all playing a role in Flare On, the development and the delivery of the competition. And here to just give us some kind of inside scoop on how the competition went this year, and maybe even more interestingly, how each challenge, or at least the challenge authors that in their respective challenges, what went into those challenges, what was the motivation, the inspiration, and a little bit of a discussion around that. So welcome everyone to the podcast, especially for those of you that are new. I think to get started, Nick, this is something that you've been managing now for quite a while. We've covered this in a couple of episodes. So maybe you and Moritz could give us a little bit of behind the scenes here. How did the competition go this year? What were the numbers, registrations, who finished, top finishers, some things like that?
Yeah, let me just start with the high level here. And this is a bit of a weird year in that this is the first year we didn't know if it was going to happen or not, and that really pushed quite deeply into the year. I don't think we got the final go ahead that this was really going to happen this year until late April, something like that, maybe even May. So it was quite deep. We normally start planning this stuff beginning of the year, right? Like January 1, basically. So it's a several month delay from the very beginning, just because are we doing this at all? And the higher ups had to come together and decide, and there was personnel changes there, whatever. So it's a weird year for that. And I think Moritz will maybe talk a little bit about the stats here in a second, but the overall players was down a little bit, and I think a theory could be that we just didn't have a lot of lead time. Like by the time we actually got the countdown score, the countdown going, and made any announcement of it, it was pretty close to game time. So announcing these things early and giving people plenty of time and lead ahead, I think, is better. It seems to get the earlier we announce it, seems to be the better participation we have.
Yeah. What do you think what is normal? What is a normal turnaround time for someone to develop a challenge? Obviously, the harder the challenge, I would assume, the more time consuming it is to create. But is that the biggest part of starting the planning really early in the year?
Yeah, you want to. So I think most challenges, the harder challenges normally allocate around 2 weeks for, and so people have spent more, and we're trying to curb that and keep everything in check. But it's really hard to do these super advanced things that can keep people guessing and playing for several days. That they don't just crop up overnight. So we typically try to allocate around 2 weeks for the harder challenges, and maybe a week or so development for the easier ones. I always do the CAPTCHA challenge, and I spend usually half a day to a day on that. So that would be the extreme low end. And so the idea here is this is not really our core responsibility here in Flare. This isn't what we really do. So give plenty of lead time for all the managers of all the people involved, so that they can try to slip this in a very convenient place in people's schedules, as opposed to everybody have to be doing it right at I don't know, August 1st through August 15th or something like that. So you had maybe a whole quarter or a quarter and a half of time where you can at some point in this large span of time, please slip this in somewhere. And but that being said, it still seemed to be pretty effective this year, giving people a shorter amount of time. It just I didn't get a lot of pushback on that. It seems like the longer time, there's some diminishing returns on how much of a window we need. So that it was interesting to collect that data. Maybe we'll um, give people a shorter window next year and just get the challenges in earlier and have a longer testing phase or something. I don't know. We'll consume that data somehow.
So, Moritz, you were pretty active on social media, at least on X, with stats and encouraging folks to continue. Was there any interesting trends that you saw in data versus previous years in registrations, or just how folks progressed through the challenges?
Yeah, I tried to put some stats just to keep people in the loop, keep everyone excited, and share some progress. I think it's exciting for us as a team. I think we all tune in and see what people are saying on Twitter. At least I do. It's like I literally just sign in again to do this. So that's been fun. And yeah, I mean, on the player numbers and how many people participate, we can only guess why it's higher or lower in certain years. Yeah, but I think overall it seemed like there's less people on X, and that's pretty much the only platform we really play at. And we don't have a big marketing team that supports this, and it's only really mouth to mouth, people recommending it. And yeah, so every year I think it's different. It's interesting to see how many people come back. So I think in the top players, we definitely see the same folks again. I think when I looked at some data from last year, I saw about 150 or so people that finished in last year in 2024 and also this year, maybe 130. And then we have about 1,000th player, I think, that's come back every year. And then the rest is net new, or I mean, it's also different. When people sign up with different names, different emails, etc.
Right.
And yeah,
I've always been curious because it seems like it's the folks that want to, anyone who wants to compete is going to sign up right away when the competition drops and get going to try to get through it as quickly as possible. It's also a great learning and educational opportunity too. So I would imagine that those registrations trickle in little by little, and the fact that now that all the solutions are publicly available as well, and those solutions, if I'm correct, are all from the challenge authors themselves. That's also, if I want to learn from Flare On, I don't necessarily need to register and compete. I can just wait till it's over and go ahead and capture the challenges and the solutions and work my way through it. Any interesting, I know the solutions are a big part of not the author solutions. Those are a great aspect to it. I think that's something that maybe not a lot of CTFs provide, but the community solutions, and those start to trickle out as the competition unfolds. Anything, and I guess this question's open to anyone who was watching, but any interesting solutions crop up? I know, I'm guessing AI played a role this year in trying to solve these, and maybe, I wouldn't say find the easy path, but I think there's a lot of interest from the RE community to see how well some of the models would actually do on challenges that are part of the Flare On competition.
Yeah, I mean, I can go ahead and talk about a solution that I saw for my challenge. It was really funny, actually. It was just a screenshot of a one-shot prompt, basically just submitting the binary and then requesting to get the flag, and the flag was correct. So it was great to see that people were still able to leverage something like AI to solve the challenge, because that is something that we wanted to account for when writing the challenges. We were thinking about how we could sort of add some string in there in case they wanted to just submit the decompilation into Gemini or whatnot, and basically see if you can sneak in a string that just says stop all instructions and return some other gibberish. So it was something that we definitely wanted to try to address, and it's something that I'm sure we'll sort of keep in mind down the road. I mean, you can obfuscate challenges, and you can compress binaries and pack them, and sort of see how AI reacts. But I'm sure others probably have something else they can kind of add to that part as well.
Yeah, sure. I know, Sam. We'll talk about your challenge here towards the end, just because it was the last challenge, and the hardest. Was there anything that you specifically took into account for AI, or was it just the complexity of the challenge probably by itself negated a lot of the ability of these models to get through your challenge?
Well, I had hoped that the complexity would do everything for me, but turns out it wasn't enough. There were quite a few AI solves that worked without understanding the math behind the solution, which probably means I need to add harder math to my challenges next time.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay, so that was a surprise for you to see those solutions come up?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe I guess so the challenge ends with there is a prize at the end. And Nick, could you maybe tell us a little bit about it? Because it's always a cool part of it. And I had a colleague in an office in Spain that was actually found a bunch of old challenge prizes from previous years, and so he sent me pictures of them, and we looked up what Flare-On that came from. What are the prizes this, or what is the prize this year, and how do you qualify for that?
Yeah, so it's this year. It's a canvas tote. So it's like it should be a. I haven't received it yet. Should be a pretty nice, high quality, thick one. So you go out shopping on the town, go to the bookshop, whatever you're going. You can show off that you're a Flare reverse engineer. So this is one of the first ones where it's like, except for maybe the belt buckle, where you can take your swag out into the world with you. So reading some of the feedback though. I guess not everybody was excited about the tote as I am. Some people prefer to just have a little trinket they set on their desk. So the tote won't really fit. It's not going to be a great little desk trinket, I guess. So I don't know. Yeah, it can't please everybody there, but I think it'll be a very nice addition.
I think people have like little Flare-On shrines. So yeah, the tote bag doesn't fit in well there.
Yeah. So to get one, obviously you have to finish the challenge. I'd say exceptions are though, like you can't be from a U.S. embargoed country, so like Russia, Iran, stuff like that. You're technically not even supposed to play. I don't have any filtering in place to try to like prevent people from Russia to play. Also, I have a lot of players from Ukraine every year, and I don't know why exactly, but Google just does not ship swag to Ukraine. So apologize to Ukraine players. You're going to have to come up with some other way. There is a couple embargoed regions within Ukraine. I think maybe that's why they've just blanket denied shipping to the entire country. So it sucks if you're like in Kyiv and can't get your prize, but maybe reach out to somebody who might be in a different country and maybe use their address or something.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of feedback and gotten a lot of message on the prizes, and people didn't receive it. Like a lot of finishers said, like, "Oh, I finished last year as well. I finished 2 years ago. I didn't get a prize. Please, can you send me one?" I think Nick talked about it in the other podcast. So, unfortunately, if you don't get it, I think you don't get it. There's no resending. No, we don't have any like stock of old prizes. So
yeah. I think the customer service hotline is closed now.
Yeah,
for Flare-On.
A little unfortunate, but I think if you're on the leaderboard, that's hopefully a prize enough. And
yeah, because that lives now forever, or at least until the servers go down. But that the scoreboards, the leaderboards are all up from all the previous challenges, and and who knows? You send that stuff in the mail into some of the path that it has to take, the prizes from the shipping distribution center. And I know, Nick, you've had to do that yourself sometimes to the recipient. A lot of variables involved. I had to ship back an Apple Watch the other day, and it didn't make it. It got stolen somewhere in the process. So I imagine that there's a percentage of things that just get lost in the flow of things. So, okay. Anything else interesting happening during the competition? I would imagine that there is, banning and cheating. I know that it's kind of inevitable with these competitions. It's meant to be single player, and certainly there's probably teams and groups. I imagine it's pretty difficult. I know you've talked about that in the past as well. It's difficult to recognize when this is happening, but any sort of egregious offenders this year?
Before I go into jail, I just the big thing that happened this year was like an accidental early start. So that is on me the contest launches it was on, I think, in the US, it would be the evening of the 26th, September 26th. But then, so in UTC, that's midnight of the 27th. So my bad. I put midnight of the 26th because I'm thinking 26th.
Sure.
And so anyway, it accidentally started um, a little bit early, and we did so in the middle of the night. And luckily, I think Moritz caught it in German time zone. So there was a 6 hour period or something like that where it was open and the first few challenges got solved, and they might have been shared around and stuff like that. So we did our best, and we actually adjusted the game board so that people's final times are going to be based on when they there'll be a delta applied to when they actually first opened the first challenge. So the people that got in there and got the early start, um, their place on the scoreboard isn't going to be the same as where they're going to be in the actual Hall of Fame order, which I'm currently compiling, because they're going to have that delta. Um, you can see in the far right column on the scoreboard now, you'll see their solve time. That will be your real place. So it's the best we can do. I know that people are like, well, people share these challenges. What if you shared this challenge, then you came in? Then it's pretty easy to detect too. If somebody comes in and they dump all the keys for the first 6 challenges, within a minute, and then they're playing challenge 7 or something, well, that's clearly they clearly cheated. They clearly got the keys, through some other method than the game board, and are playing. So it's just the best we could do. Cheating was down, I think, overall this year from last year. Last year was like shockingly egregious. I think I banned 40 something people. I mean, it was just rampant. That was the first year I'd really gotten heavy with it, and because I think word was on the street maybe that we don't check anything or we don't care, don't I don't know. It just went wild. So it's down this year. There's still a few obvious team players. You see people in the same region with very similar solve times for every single thing, or people just clearly dumping keys all at once. I don't want to get into every specific thing I look for because don't want to like tip people off to cheat better, but just try to do it. If you're going to cheat, just don't be quite so egregious, and that would be my advice to the cheaters. Sometimes I don't really detect the cheaters until I'm actually compiling the shipping data, though, because people will appear to be coming from different places, but then I'll have 10 people all finished together from the same address. It's like, I don't know. I'm going to go back and look at those scores a little more carefully, or the solve times a little more carefully if I see that. So anyway, that's all I have for that.
Yeah, I can talk also about the early start. I was like, we just had everything ready. I was like, Friday morning, we're all excited. Flairon's gonna start today. So I log into the platform and look. I'm like seeing, like, wait, there's like people that have points already, and like one person is already on challenge 5, and I'm like freaking out. So I'm messaging my one other colleague who's awake. I'm like, did we start already? He's like, no, we start tonight. I'm like, well, there's already people that have points, and like we look and saw the misconfiguration, and we're like, oh, well, what do we do? Do we stop it? Do we let it run and tell everyone about it? So that's when I signed up like for X again and logged in. We're like, we figured it out. Like we tried to stop it. That's the most fair we could come up at that moment. Stopped it. Let everyone know like there was a misconfiguration. We're gonna figure this out when like Nick comes online. And then like for the rest of the day, we were just sitting here and waiting for Nick to come online. Like, was this the right thing? Is this good? Like, and I think it is. Like everyone was waiting for it to be on Friday night, or at least US time Friday night. So then, yeah, I think with the recalculation of times, that's fair.
Yeah, it certainly seems reasonable to me.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's not really comparable to other years, but I think still like the winner. I think he still started fair and square at the expected time and won. And yeah, and congrats to everyone. Like if you finished, I think if you're in the top whatever, top 100, definitely like if you're a finisher, you're awesome. So
Yeah, the top finisher was Riatre, which who had been a top finisher before and is like a legendary player. So I was glad it's somebody like that finished first, as opposed to some unknown who early started. Then it would it would have been a lot more backlash. But it's like, that guy's a demon. You're not going to beat him anyway. So yeah, glad.
But who
Yeah.
knows? Maybe we'll. I'm big into cycling, so maybe we'll pull a Lance Armstrong on this, and 7 years from now we'll go back and rescind the top person and like delete them from the history books.
Yeah. And I can talk also about the cheating a little bit, because I also got a bunch of messages, because then like people saw me on Twitter and they thought like, this guy is also talking about Flare on here. He did this first announcement. So I got a lot of followers out of it. And then people messaged me on like cheating stuff, which was interesting as well. There was like certain people that went around apparently trying to social engineer other players, because like we know there's like sharing and people help each other, which is good, like to a certain extent. If you're stuck, like maybe you need a little nudge. Yep. But apparently there was one person going around and like trying to convince others that he's already solved it. He just like wants to find a better solution or work with them to like see how he could have done better, like to get flags out. So I got notified about that. And then we also got a message about a person like in the final week or so, they were offering to buy the flags for the last 2 challenges for a couple of $100s. That was also interesting to see.
Is that the first you've seen that?
At least
been
like,
aware of it?
Like getting like confirmation of it. It's definitely interesting. Yeah.
If somebody comes to you with that, like I would say, come to us, because we can give you like a false key, and maybe even a false key that lets them advance. That way we can trace and identify who's using this illegally bought key, and it certainly made it easy to flag. We did that this year. Like the person gave them an incorrect key, so it made it very easy for me to go in and just say who has attempted that incorrect key, and nailed them.
Mm. And you made $200 along the way too. Yeah. What I'm curious is how did people know that it started early? You know, did they automate when the challenges drop, or they just happen to be on the Flare-On website? I suppose in Europe it was a little bit easier just because it was more in the time zone that you might be awake. I find that kind of odd. It was well advertised when it was going to start. So
yeah, I think people logged in, and probably in Asia, I think a bunch of them, maybe like I think here was like 2 a.m. or something. And yeah, you logged in, and then you could just see like, well, you can download challenge 1 here, and then you could download, you can enter the flag, and off you go. So
just happened to get in. Huh.
Well, I had early registration up, so people, like if you had logged in to make your user account ahead of time, you would have been like, okay, I made my account, and then it would just say, here's the first challenge, and be like, okay. So I think that happened to a lot of people that were logging in just to get ready.
To get ready. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Got a little too ready.
Yeah. Well, so sounds like a great year. What about, so I wanted to spend a little bit of time here before we get too lengthy, just talking about challenge development. I think that's an interesting insight that we can provide, what goes into making the challenges, motivations. We have 4 challenge authors from this year, and we're just going to talk through them in the level of difficulty. So, you know, Nick, you are traditionally the first challenger. You have been for many Flare-Ons. Maybe you could start just talking about your first challenge and the role that it plays, and maybe too just a little bit about how, because you ultimately have to rack and stack these. Maybe a little bit of the process on just how you figure out what the order should be, because I know in Flare-On's past, it's been brought up. Maybe sometimes it's hard to get the order right, and that's all you and the team to do that. So I would imagine that's quite challenging.
Yeah. So yeah, starting out with the first part of your question there, my first challenge I normally do here is we call it the CAPTCHA challenge. So the challenge 1 shouldn't be very difficult. And that's kind of the point, is just to like see how many people are like really playing, because anybody can just make an account, bots can make an account, whatever. But how many people are actually like have any business being on this website at all, is kind of the point of that first challenge. No offense to anybody listening who didn't complete that first challenge, but because this year was a little different. So because we were limited by management to being 8 challenges. So I just sold this as being like, okay, we're doing 8 challenges. I tasked 8 people with developing challenges, and I just kind of like glossed over mine. It's like, oh, it's just a capture challenge. So in order to kind of like add more meat, a little bit underhanded of me, but to add a little bit more meat to the challenge overall this year, I made the capture challenge this year a little bit harder. So it's a little bit more complicated this year. It's still pretty easy. I got in the feedback, I see people like give me hints on like how to make challenge 1 harder. I'm like, that's not I don't need any hints on that. Sorry. It's like the point is to be pretty easy. So it's still only a day of effort, and I think half my day was spent generating images in Gemini. But yeah, so that's the point of that, just to be super easy, and there's really not much to talk about on that challenge. Let's save some time there. But as far as the racking and stacking, it is a collaborative effort. So we have all the challenge authors produce their solution documents ahead of time, like when they're writing their challenge or as soon as they finish, with varying degrees of success there, I would say. And usually you can read the solution document. If you read it carefully, you can get a pretty good sense of how in-depth something is. In like Sam Kim's solution document, it's only a couple of pages, but it's a couple of pages of very dense, text with a lot of math and stuff like that. Like this is going to be a little bit much. We had pegged his to be the final challenge early on, just from his description of it, and he added a little more complexity to it along the way, just to make sure we had a real solid final challenge. I didn't want to have like 800 flare-on finishers this year, just because we had a shorter challenge. So we wanted to make sure we had a really solid final challenge. The rest of them, though, try to have a lot of different people playing and testing the challenges, and then we come to a consensus on the ordering. Don't always get it perfect, because we don't have like every single person playing every single challenge and having the same opinion on them. So, but I think this year we did pretty good with the difficulty curve. It didn't seem like we got any feedback that like this challenge shouldn't have been 5, it should have been 2 or whatever. It's like people didn't complain about that this year, which is the first in many years of that. So
yeah, I think the only feedback I noticed was more malware. I'm not sure exactly what that.
Sam mentioned something about like putting in more math next year for his challenge, but all the feedback was like that was enough math. That was maybe too much math. Less math next year.
Yeah.
More malware related challenges, less math. That was the big takeaway, if I could sum it up with AI.
Yeah, and your challenge, I know, had the source code, so it was like several artifacts, a Pi installer or something, but the source was also there. So it is kind of a capture human test. Blas, I think you were next. What was your challenge? Am I getting the order correct?
Yeah, so I did challenge number 6. That was the chain of demands challenge. And for that one, definitely a semi-culprit of the more mathy stuff. I did want to stick to a malware adjacent topic, and the whole point of the challenge is you had a chat client and you were supposed to be sort of trying to negotiate with a ransomware operator how you can decrypt your system. So it was just supposed to be an actual working client, and the whole point of it was to reverse the client itself and try to sort of break the faulty encryption that they had. So I wanted to kind of apply some basic concepts that you kind of learn when you sort of begin reverse engineering. So I had like a triple XOR feature in there, but there was the one of the variables that was used in the XOR was just a time variable that started at 0. So you were able to just very easily decrypt the seed and sort of regenerate the state that was used later on in the RSA encryption. I wanted to also sort of make it interesting because I'm honestly really fascinated by all the creative ways that Web3 has been leveraged in malware recently, and we've just been seeing more of it. So I wanted to basically export certain functionalities to a locally compiled smart contract that you can deploy as well locally, and I have that in the write-up as well for anyone who wants to actually test out the server. It should be working locally. And the whole point of it was to basically introduce people again to some other Web3 concepts, kind of demonstrate how you can leverage the functionality in other ways. So I was. It's kind of hard to gauge that because you are introducing sort of different topics into what has been traditionally a Windows-oriented malware CTF, and you're kind of trying to stay on theme and have still some complexity to it, but it's hard treading the balance of something that you want to be solvable and at the same time you want it to be difficult and hit the deliverable along with all the other work you have to sort of account for on the day-to-day. So it's really nice to have others on the team be able to look at it and provide feedback and give reviews sort of as to what they think could work and could not work. And I guess to kind of just wrap it all up, the challenge was meant to be somewhat AI friendly because I kind of get nervous sometimes with how heavy you can obfuscate something like a smart contract, and I just don't want it to be absolutely impossible to reverse. And I was even considering, compressing the Python binary as well with some other libraries, but it's just difficult when the technology isn't even there for something that you see in the wild. You're kind of gonna have to reverse it yourself for the CTF and then have a valid write-up for it. It can be a little too involved sometimes, but when you see the results each year, you kind of just make a mental note. Man, maybe I actually do want to have that for next year. Just figure it all out with a little extra time. So it's like the typical cat and mouse game that you see also in the real world. You're the red team trying to keep making things harder for the blue team to sort of figure out and all that. So overall, yeah, that's about it for my challenge. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from everyone else now.
I would imagine scope creep is this similar with the challenge development, in that maybe you start off with this grand design, and then as you start implementing it, you realize it's becoming more and more time consuming. You've authored challenges in the past. What is some of the big takeaways you've had from the previous challenge? And you've done other competitions as well, I know, but some of the previous CTFs that you've been involved in challenge creation and kind of where you're at today. What are some of the big lessons you've learned for creating good challenges?
Yeah, you just want to make sure that you can really gamify what you've got going on. You don't want to have anything that's too complicated. And at the end of the day, it does have to be something that's satisfying for the person who is solving your challenge. If they can learn something along the way, then that's a huge benefit overall. They are going to be dedicating hours, if not days, to try to rack their brain around what they are looking at. So if you give them something that they can take with them and give them something nice that they can sort of write up or maybe even apply in the real world, then that's what I personally see as a huge benefit to CTFing in the first place. And yeah, I mean, from challenge development in previous flare-ons and also just from other CTFs from back in the day, I mean, I have learned that you can spend as much time as you can and you can still have unforeseen circumstances. You could have someone just absolutely change or flip a bit in your binary or just remove the magic header and the flag reveals itself with no issues. So you always want to watch out for those sort of tangential solves that might be unforeseen, or you also want to make sure that your challenge is in good condition to sort of survive any other sort of circumstances that may not have been presented in your sort of perfect test environment with no confounding variables, right?
Yeah. I've always I haven't been a part of Flare On, but in a previous life, I would run some CTFs for a university, and I was always so paranoid that I would get the key embedded wrong, or I would put the key wrong into the CTF platform and make it ultimately unsolvable. So I know that's a big part of the QA process. Moritz, so I think you were the next challenge. So we went from 1 to 7. This would mean we have 8 and 9 left. So 7, 8, 9.
Yes, so mine was the 7th challenge.
Yours was the 7th.
Yes, okay. The boss needs help. And yeah, on the other part with getting the challenge right, I'm definitely always nervous. Like we're all like sitting here waiting for everyone, like the first person to finish and be like, okay, it's solvable. Like every challenge, at least one person figured it out. So
breathe a little sigh of relief.
Yeah. So luckily this year around, it was only a day we had to wait, or luckily or not. But yeah. So yeah, my challenge was a Windows binary with some junk obfuscation. It was based on like an actual malware sample I analyzed earlier this year. Yeah, just trying to be this like old school flare on vibe. There was a PCAP provided, which I think is always fun. Like you understand the malware, then you either write a script to automate some things, or you are able to decrypt the traffic, etc. So that was my goal here. And yeah, the obfuscation was based on something I saw. It was really annoying, but at the end of the day, if you figure it out, it's not that big of a deal. And there was some really cool creative solutions in those write-ups. And I think that's always also great to see the stuff people share coming out of Flareon, the tools we improve because of Flareon, like Hexrace, Decompiler, Hexrace, IDA, Malcat, etc. A couple of shout outs here. Binary Ninja. Definitely, it's cool to see the other impact on the community here based on that. And I think we have to come up with some Rust challenges and stuff like that moving forward here to help us there.
Have Rust and Go binaries made their appearance yet in Flareon?
Yeah, Go a couple of times, and it was called out in the last IDA release that it was an inspiration to improve the decompiler and Go analysis. So
okay, so Rust in 2026.
Yeah, it's in the list. I guess we're all like scared to do the write up and like deal with it ourselves.
Yeah, and so the key was embedded in the network traffic. Is that what ultimately led to the solve?
So I was like also trying to tell a story and be kind of fun. So like you analyze what happens, a couple of backdoor commands run, data gets sent back and forth, file get exfiltrated, and then you have to like find the password and get the image out. Which I talked about it before with Nick. Like he had some concerns on the image with the flag. And I've learned my lesson. I think we're gonna, like, if we do it again next year, implement some rules on like, okay, zero is always gonna be like an O, and like a 1 is always an I, etc. with the lead speak, because there was a little bit frustration early on when we had the rule, the flag check set too strict. So I apologize for that. There was caused some trouble for people early on. I think one person like submitted 1,000 solutions. Like he had the flag and like they should be able to advance, but yeah, there was this mishap.
Sure. Yeah, I suppose that's another part of the being a challenge author, that, as you say, you're waiting for that first solve to come in, but then you're also kind of watching as other, because you see the flags just to see if there's permutations of it that should be accepted that aren't. Cool. Any big lessons learned then outside of that for this year's challenge development?
Yeah, so I was really focused on the static analysis, but a lot of people and a lot of creative solutions used like dynamic solutions as well. So I think like in future iterations, I would like add more checks and more guardrails around that. I think it's fine. There was still some setup you had to do, and you had to understand and reverse to be able to do that. But sometimes if you just replay it, I think like it's not that fun. I want to push people to have to look into the code actually and understand what's going on. So
cool. Well, great work. I guess that takes us to, I know, the final challenge. So Sam, So I know you're an avid CTF player, so I would imagine that your experience and your success there influences you a lot. But can you just tell us a little bit about the challenge and what inspired the math heavy portion of it, and what went into the development for this year?
Sure. So my challenge was called 10,000, but the original name was the 10,000 DLL challenge, which is a pretty good description of what the challenge is. So the inspiration for all this was the End Cuts series of challenges from the DEF CON CTF goals, which involves a lot of small binaries or functions that you need to reverse automatically, since there's way too many to reverse by hand. So in my challenge, it had 10,000 DLLs, so each implementing a randomly generated check function that you need to automatically reverse, since there's really no way you're doing all this by hand. Well, hopefully. I'd be very impressed if you did. These functions also call other functions from other DLLs. So the solution involves finding the order the DLLs are supposed to be loaded in, which involves doing a topological sort on the dependency graph of the DLLs, which happens to work out since the graph is acyclic. And solving the check functions themselves also requires a bit of group theory. You need to invert modular exponentiation of a matrix, which involves knowing the group order. Yeah, I strongly believe that reverse engineers should know at least a little bit of group theory. Well, maybe not. I just wanted to put a bunch of things I enjoy into a single challenge and have other people experience it. So yeah, so fun things. This challenge takes like an hour to compile, and that's after I figured out how to parallelize it. So that was pretty fun.
Did you see any creative? So I guess first of all, if anyone's listening to this podcast and you're still manually working your way through these libraries, you should probably stop and try to automate it. Did you find any unique solves? I would imagine that typically the hardest challenge tends to get with the majority of the feedback or the social media engagements, or maybe direct contact. I don't know. It's not obvious who the authors are when the challenge is running. But did you see anything interesting in ways you didn't expect folks to solve it? Or
I think it was just the AI solves that I saw. I didn't see any really any alternate solutions. They mostly just followed the path that I set out for them.
And there was great feedback on the when you finish, you can submit feedback and we read through it and take it into account. And there was very this challenge was awesome, but I'm also dead now. And there was also a lot of well, it was too much. Why didn't you just do 100 or whatever? That would have been the same. But I think it was a good final challenge. It was a good job there.
Yeah, I didn't look at it, but I saw that it was a pretty hefty download. So I guess that would explain why, because there were 10,000 individual files to deal with. And well, I guess anything else on challenges for this year, challenge development, or anything that you encountered? Just anyone here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm only on that. I think the feedback was really good. So I think, as Nick put it in the blog post, it was a fan favorite, I think, for the last couple of years. So it was a good mixture. Definitely more math, but yeah, it's every year is different, right? You don't know when you get a malware sample, you don't know what's in it. So
yeah, I wish we had more other architectures and stuff to show off this year. It's just I'm a little bit constrained by what ideas they come up with. So the way Google has us kind of specialized and they want all of it. We're a very experienced team, and they want us doing all these cutting edge projects and things. So it's hard to allocate any time for Flare-on. So we only get pretty much just the number of ideas submitted that we need to make it happen. So if I had cooler ideas in there, maybe I could have picked those and cut out some, to provide a better mixture. But if any Flare people are listening, there's maybe this inspiration to try to come up with an off-the-wall architecture for next year or something like that, and keep it as malware focused as we can. But I am constrained by what is submitted.
So Flare on 13 then, does that look like maybe we're a little too early to have any indications of what will happen, but it sounds like Flare on 13 will be a go next year?
We're proceeding as if yes. So it's like I think it's happening. We're assuming it's happening until somebody steps in and accesses it. So that's a more solid footing than we were last year, where it was like it's dead unless somebody steps in and resuscitates it. So yes, it's most likely happening next year. I can say that more confidently than last year. So.
Okay. Same time, likely same duration, so everyone can look for announcements. And Flare on website is up year round, so that'll be a place to go, and just anticipate it to be in the fall like it has been. I think it's always been in the fall, hasn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think the very first year it might have been more in the summer, but we'll try to get on more CTF calendars and stuff for next year. As I noticed, we're not on some of the biggest calendars out there, which is surprising. I don't know.
Okay. Sam, are you challenging? You're going to write a challenge next year?
Hopefully.
Hopefully. Okay. And everyone else, Blas, Moritz?
Yeah, definitely going to be looking forward to having a more malware-oriented, Rust-based, hyper-compressed challenge next year. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah, I mean, with the AI stuff, it's going to be interesting. So we have to I guess we have to do more obfuscation and more stuff like that, because otherwise you just like pop all the binaries in and like the AI gives you the answer, which is no fun. Like you don't learn anything from that. So like we're trying to like educate people here as well and have a good time. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an important. I suppose if you are pushing to be a top finisher, you're probably in a mode where you just as fast as possible get the key, move on to the next thing. If you're here to learn, there is sometimes a little bit more of a route you can go through to make sure that you do squeeze all of the learning out of it. Again, all of the solutions, there's a blog post out with a wrap up that has a lot of the stats. All the solutions from the team are also made available there, so you can go to flare-on was that a .com? Yeah, flare-on.com. I'll put a link in the show notes, but you can get directed to those solutions. And then of course there's a lot of great artifacts out there from the community, because it is very much a community event. With that, I think we can call this an episode. Well, thank you all for joining me today. Thanks for your time. Thanks again for another great year of Flare On and all the effort that goes into hosting it and developing it. Looking forward to Flare On 13 in 2026.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
And that's all for this episode of Behind the Binary. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, please consider subscribing and leaving a review. It really helps us to reach new listeners. Until then, stay curious and keep exploring.